The difference between someone with a higher degree, like a bachelor's, master's, or even a PhD, isn't intelligence, but endurance and good study habits. My name is Carlos. I hold a PhD in Romance, Languages, and Literatures from Harvard University, a very, very reading and writing heavy program. When I started grad school, I learned how to read in a way that allowed me both to be productive and to safeguard my mental health. And I'd like to share some of these strategies with you now. The first thing I'd like to share is that there are different ways of reading depending on your goals and course expectations. This might feel obvious to some folks, but for everyone from perfectionists and completionists to first-generation students like me, it might feel like you have to read every single thing in the same way, thoroughly and with annotations, or maybe briskly, just to get the gist of it. Here's my recommendation for the humanities student. Read all primary literature carefully and thoroughly. Read all required secondary literature just to the point where you're prepared for class or writing, and read all non-required secondary literature as you're able, skimming the most important parts, oftentimes just the intro, conclusion, and relevant chapters or sections. The pressure to know every single thing in grad school can trick you into thinking that you have to read every single thing, but this isn't true. As you build your own identity as a scholar, you will learn what sources you want to revisit for a stronger grasp, and which you can keep in the back of your mind to reference when needed, as well as which ones you don't need at all. That brings me to my next tip, rereading. You will never fully grasp a text, and I would argue this is especially true of a work of fiction, until you've read it twice. The first time you read it is to orient yourself and, I would hope, to enjoy the experience of encountering a new story, a new idea, a new set of characters. The second time around is when you make your actually useful annotations, where you gather your insights and articulate valuable questions which lead to strong arguments. All this means that no novel or short story will yield up all its treasures the first time you read it, and you're not meant to exhaust a work of fiction with thorough comprehension and unwavering confidence, especially when you first encounter it. Give yourself permission to revisit. There's also value in reading secondary literature after you've read the primary or focus text, which is my next tip. Secondary literature is exactly that, secondary. But it doesn't mean it's not incredibly helpful and enlightening to engage with scholarship to increase your own understanding. Scholarship, in this context, by the way, is just a way to refer to the work of literary scholars. Literary theory and criticism can best be understood as an ongoing conversation among scholars and readers past and present about what literature is doing, can do, or should do, and why. Writers, readers, and scholars all approach stories within different contexts or with different assumptions and commitments, and literary theory helps us to articulate, and when needed, to challenge those contexts, commitments, and assumptions. Feminist, queer, Marxist, formalist, deconstruction theory, these are all examples of orientations towards cultural artifacts like novels or short stories that help us question and understand them better. Most importantly, I would argue, they help us to enjoy them better. Some people use AI programs to find, organize, summarize, and integrate secondary literature for coursework, or, unfortunately, for scholarship. Here's my next tip, by the way. Please do not do this. Without even going into the devastating effects AI has on the environment and on cognition generally, as a scholar, and in particular as a scholar of the humanities, even just in undergrad, your job, and hopefully your joy, is to wrestle with big ideas in order to question them, teach them, develop them, or respond to them for the benefit of society, for people everywhere. It might feel like you're saving time or effort by asking AI to do all your reading for you. But the problem is that offloading your reading, and certainly offloading your writing, is offloading your thinking. Making your own summaries, doing your own readings, articulating the literature in your own words and for your own work are in themselves acts of thinking. AI can aggregate, it can mimic, it can hallucinate. But in the context of humanities scholarship, AI can never come up with strong questions, valuable insights, novel ideas, or anything approaching good writing. Maybe you'll hit a deadline by asking an LLM to feed you a bunch of summaries or reword your writing, but you'll have, at best, an incomplete understanding of the literature and a soulless output that sounds like everyone else's soulless output. If you need help wrestling with literature or writing your own scholarship, my very next tip is to make use of office hours. As a first-generation student, I didn't realize when I was an undergrad what an incredible resource this is. Yes, there will always be professors or teachers who treat teaching like a necessary evil or a life sentence. They think that the real intellectual work happens alone as they type away on their computers or doze on a plane on the way to a conference. They don't see the intellectual value of the classroom. Those types of teachers are frankly miserable, and I feel bad for them. Any good professor, particularly in the humanities, will see their students as fellow readers and thinkers, and they will be happy to go over your work or over a difficult text with you if you meet with them for office hours. Don't just show up to their office and go, "I'm confused," expecting all your problems to go away, though. Rather, you should have specific questions you want to ask or specific problems you want to go over, and communicate them to your professor beforehand. Trust me, they are there to help and they want to. These tips are a really good start towards success as a humanities student at any level of higher education. I want to leave you with one more before I finish up. Try to enjoy the time you spend reading, writing, and thinking. Learning to think critically, to question, to observe, and read carefully makes you ungovernable by those who would gladly defund literacy programs and ban every slightly nonconformist book. Finding joy in reading, thinking, and discussing the many ways humans try to tell their stories is in itself a form of resistance. I hope these help, and if you have more tips, make sure to leave them in the comments.